In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use the Save TXT Files to Folder plugin for the Butter text analysis software. What this plugin will do is allow us to take texts that we have read in and modified using other plugins and save them out to individual TXT or plain text files on our own computer. This can be very helpful when you have texts that you want to see very closely how the modifications are being made, or in cases where you need separate TXT files. Some other text analysis programs prefer TXT files, so this can be an easy way to take texts that are in another format, like PDF, or texts that are in a CSV file, and save them out to individual text files. For this example, we'll work with this dataset that I have of Academy Award speeches. This is a CSV file that contains a number of Academy Award speeches that I scraped a few years back, and they include a number of different columns. We have an ID column, we have a column that describes what the award categories were, and we have a column that contains the speech text. We actually have multiple columns that contain the speech text. And you can see some of these don't have any text, some of them have paragraphs of text. And what we want to do is take these texts and then save them out to individual files. And there are a few things we can do. We can create a file name column that has something that we want to use as a file name, or we can use a column like this, the ID column. And what the plugin will do then is go through and save each text that we give to it using whatever column we choose as a file name, and then whatever column we choose as the text that gets put inside of those files. So let's go ahead and read in the text from the CSV file. And I'll go ahead and choose the file. And we'll just use the ID column for the file names here. And we will use the speech text column as the actual text that we're going to put into the files. Now you could use other plugins as well. If you had PDF files that you want to convert to TXT files, you could load those in and then save them out to TXT files. The same is true for a lot of these other file types. Now when we go into the settings for the Save TXT Files to Folder plugin, there are a few different options here. You can choose what encoding you want to save the texts as. Now this is kind of a big topic and we won't get into it too far here. Just know that typically UTF-8 is going to be fine for most people. If you know that you need your text to be in a different encoding, you can use this drop-down menu to choose the correct encoding that you want to save your files in. Now the next setting is to choose where we want to actually put all of these TXT files. So we'll tell it what folder we want to put the TXT files in. And in this case, I've already made a folder here, Academy Speeches TXT, and a subfolder TXT. So we'll go ahead and just put them in here. Now this last option, Append Text to Files. So what this will do, if it is checked, is it will append text to files rather than continually overwrite files if they already exist. I'll give you an example. Since we're going to use the ID column as our file names, what the first plugin, the Read Text from CSV plugin, is going to do is go through every row and read in this data and keep the ID column for the file names and the speech text column here as the actual text. Now these are all unique numbers here, so the first one will come out as 6.txt, the second one will be 12.txt, and so forth. Now if our file looked like this, where we have multiple rows, they're using the same ID as a file name, this option here determines what will happen as we go through each of these rows. So if we have this checked, append text to files, what's going to happen is it'll get to the first row, pull out the speech text, and write it to 6.txt. With this option checked, when we get to the second row, it's going to take this text and append it into 6.txt because it's the same ID that we're using as a file name. So it's writing text to the same file that's already been created. And as we go through, we'll just keep appending additional texts into 6.txt until we get to something that isn't 6.txt. Now if this option is unchecked, what this means is that the files will be overwritten. So what will happen is we'll get to 6, we'll write the text into 6.txt, and then go to the next row. Because this option is unchecked, we're not appending the text, so we'll be overwriting instead. So instead of taking each speech and adding it to the one before it, it's going to just go ahead and clear everything that's already written and start over for each one of these. So when all is said and done, we'll end up with just one of these texts in the file. Now for most cases, you'll want to leave this unchecked. You're going to want to keep unique texts in unique files. However, if you know that you want to aggregate texts, so if you have multiple texts that are all written by the same person, for example, you may want to check this option so that all of the text for each person that you're using as your file ID, for example, gets saved into one aggregated file. Now in this case, we'll just go with what's normal. We'll leave the IDs alone, and we will leave this unchecked. And when we go into this folder, you'll see the files start to get written once we run the plugin. So I'll go ahead and click Begin Analysis to run this pipeline, and it's already finished. And we can see that all of these text files have shown up now, and each one of these should include the text from that CSV file. Now I'll show you a slightly more advanced use case. So let's say we want to go in and modify these texts a little bit and then save them out to TXT files. You'll notice that there are several additional plugins. For example, let's see, tokens to string. So if we want to tokenize these texts and then write them back into the text files, we'll have to go through a couple of additional steps. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So if we read in the text from CSV file using the same options we had before, ID and speech text for the respective columns, we'll go ahead and tokenize these texts, and then we'll go ahead and turn these tokens, which are output by the Twitter-aware tokenizer. We'll use this plugin to turn those tokens back into strings. And then we can write these strings back out as TXT files. Now again, we have this unchecked, so we're not going to keep writing this new tokenized text into the same files. This is going to overwrite each file with the now tokenized texts. So I'll go ahead and run this really quick. And if we go back and open up these files, we can see it has been tokenized with the tokenizer. You can see everything is in lowercase now, and that the punctuation marks have been separated. We've successfully tokenized the texts and then written them back into the files. And there are several other plugins that you can do this with. You can take any type of data that you can convert back into a string and save them to text files. So if you have transcript data, you could go through a process where you read in your transcripts and then separate the transcripts into separate speakers, and then go through and write those separate transcripts back out to TXT files. But that's the core process through which we can take texts, modify them, or even just convert file formats and save them back out to TXT files. And that's it. That's how you use the Save TXT Files to Folder plugin for Butter.